Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville. My name is Andy Wilson, and I am the executive leader, and it is so exciting that you're with us. First of all, to all our viewers and listeners, I want to say thank you for what you're doing. Right now, Doing Business in Bentonville, we're in 22 countries because of you. So thank you so much. Continue to share all over your favorite streaming channel. That's where we are, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and of course our LinkedIn. We're there, and you can always check out our website at doingbusinessinbentonville.com or in our dbbnwa.com. That's where you'll find all of our podcasts with articles and all of that. Okay, well, I've got to get straight to our guest today. I'm so excited. I met a few months ago a wonderful individual, and he leads a company in the East, and it's called AIIR Consulting. Jonathan is the CEO of the company, and you've already been able to see a great podcast of Jonathan and I and talking about the company, where the company is going, and all the wonderful things the company's doing. But we're going to really get into this. As you know, leadership is critical. It is so important, and the world is changing. And as the world changes, it's more complex, it's more difficult. We must develop, train, and educate our leaders to be the best in the world. Well, there's a company that is doing that today, and and that is AIIR Consulting. And my guest today is Andrew Smith. Andrew, welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be here.
Man, it is so great. My name is Andrew. We have someone shortened mine through years ago, but I love that name, man. That's a solid name.
But actually, a funny story about that. People have been trying to call me Andy or Drew my entire life, and I insist on Andrew, except when I'm in Mexico where my wife is from, where I refer to myself as Andres. But she doesn't like that very much.
Yeah, I know. Same here, man. We get it shortened, don't we, through the years? And but anyway, Andrew is a phenomenal leader at AIIR Consulting, and his topic today is called Today's Leader. Now, let me tell you a bit about what's going to happen next. We're going to go through, and Andrew and I are going to have a great discussion around today's leader, and then we're going to follow with the following podcast. So that's why you have to really stay tuned here with this. But our next podcast after today's leader will be teams. We're going to get into the importance and how you lead a team. And then this is going to be one of my favorite, I believe, and it's called Tomorrow's Leader. That's the third podcast. It's going to be Tomorrow's Leader. As leaders, we not only focus on today, but we must focus on the future. And one of the things around leading people is understanding where this is going, and that's Tomorrow's Leader. And then my favorite is called Trust. People follow you, the leader, as far as they trust you. So that was going to be great. So Andrew, today we're going to talk about today's leader. But first, I would love for you to talk a bit more about AIIR Consulting. And then I want to introduce you more, and so people get to know you and your background. So talk to us a bit more about AIIR.
Yeah, sure. Happy to, Andy. AIIR Consulting, we've been around for about 14 years. We're a leadership consulting firm. I know you mentioned our CEO, Dr. Jonathan Kirshner. His background is really in executive coaching, and we started as an executive coaching firm. So throughout the years, we've expanded to executive assessment. We've expanded to team effectiveness or team coaching. And then most recently, the last few years, we've expanded into the learning and leadership development space. Funny enough, AIIR is the first coaching company I've ever worked for. My background is in learning and leadership development. Academically, my background's in industrial organizational psychology. But I spent the last decade plus of my career at the Neuro Leadership Institute and the Mind Gym, where I learned everything I know today about learning, design, and leadership development. So when Jonathan approached me to come kind of build the function at AIIR, I jumped at the opportunity, and it's been an exciting ride ever since.
Well, let me tell you, Andrew, we're so glad to have you at AIIR, and it's good to have you here today. And I will tell you now a bit about you because I want our audience again to know a bit about you. Now, you're head of leadership development for AIIR Consulting. What exactly is that? Talk to us about your role and responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I just talked about a couple minutes ago, we have an executive coaching side of the house, executive assessment, team coaching. I really oversee our learning and kind of training offering. I say training loosely because it's really designing behavior change experiences. An easy way to divide kind of the team that I lead into what we do is into solutions strategy and solutions design. So the strategy side of my team or the function I lead is really all about helping clients understand what their problems actually are and really what behaviors they want to shift in the organization, whether it's a diversity, equity, and inclusion program, whether they have a 3-day offsite or an intensive, something like that. We really want to understand through needs analysis and deep scoping what these organizations are trying to achieve in their leaders and the behaviors they're trying to shift there. Then once we move into an engagement or a partnership, we also have the ability to design those programs, those summits, those modules, workshops, et cetera. And we have a large swath of kind of off-the-shelf portfolio modules in our library to do this, ranging from topics of kind of managing your boss to creating an environment of psychological safety to coaching skills, decision-making. A lot of the areas we're going to talk about when we get to the leadership framework, they're all covered within our portfolio. So on the design side of the house, oftentimes we're taking our portfolio content, our proprietary curated content, and we're developing customized or tailored experiences for our clients using those modules as the kind of building blocks. But it goes beyond just those modules. These modules sit inside a behavior change journey using, drumroll please, the name of our company as the backdrop. So AIIR Consulting, AIIR, for the viewers listening in here or the listeners listening in here, stands for Assessment, Insight, Implementation, Reinforcement. So essentially, we put leaders and learners through a journey that starts with allowing them to assess themselves, where their strengths and areas of development are. The insight phase is all about digging deeper into why or what the behaviors are they need to shift and building belief in the need to do that. Implementation is using the modules that I talked about or designed, curated learning experiences to really build those skills. And then the R is perhaps the most important part of that model, which stands for reinforcement. We can do everything from the more static things like practice tools and toolkits, all the way up to micro simulations, AI-based learning, things like that, to keep the learning going and making sure it's sticking with participants going through those journeys.
That's a great overview of the company, Andrew. That's exciting. Now, what I viewers and listeners, they're going to say, okay, now your topic is today's leader. So, all right, I lead an organization, I lead a company. I'm leading significant people. So now walk me through, if I were to have you come into my company, what would you do? What's your process? How would you go about, the assessment and help me to become a better leader to understand what I need to be doing today as a leader? How would you just walk us through that?
Well, when we say today's leader, we know leaders are dealing with a lot right now. We know there's a lot of challenges coming out in the post-pandemic world, hybrid working, artificial intelligence, AI is really starting to play a major role. But in terms of, how we get the process started, it's really about figuring out what the leaders at your organization need to be better at. So we have our own point of view when we talk about the leadership framework in a little bit. I'll get deeper into that on what today's leaders should be focusing on. But we don't like to start with ourselves. We like to start with you, the client, really. Like what do your leaders need to be better at, right? So we have a process we use, kind of a deep scoping process, interviews, focus groups. We have an executive assessment side of the house as well, which we use to understand where the leadership strengths and gaps are at your particular company. And we use all that information to come up with a recommendation on what a solution or learning journey or solutions journey, what the architecture could look like to get your organization to get your leaders from point A, which is their current behaviors right now, to point B, which is the ideal behaviors we want to shift to in the future.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so you're inside the organization. You start as you just line that out, and then once you get that data back from then what's next after that?
Yep. So once we have the data on what behaviors we want to shift, we get to work thinking about what's the best solution that's going to shift these behaviors, right? So I talked a little earlier about the AIIR Leadership Framework. We oftentimes are putting together a journey with those 4 phases. What's the assessment that's going to help these leaders in the journey understand their strengths and areas for development? We scope that out in the scoping phase, right? But when you get to the participant level, we need the leaders to be assessed as well. What are the right insight solutions to really help these leaders to believe in the behaviors they need to shift? And then the implementation side of things, what's the right mix of training modules, behavior change experiences, and then reinforcement between those experiences and at the end of the journey to keep things, moving like clockwork and keep that behavior change sticking in the leaders. So we curate I like to call it a 30,000 foot architecture or view of what the kind of leadership solution is. And then we get to work having conversations with the client, is this the right solution for you? Is this really going to elicit true behavior change in your people, at your culture, at your company? Because everyone's different. Every leader's different. Every organization's different, and everyone's got different needs. At absolutely every step of the way, the number one thing we have at the front of our minds as designers of these experiences is the participant, right? So we don't want to just take something and kind of force fit it into a situation. We really want to think about and get to know the participants in these journeys, how they tick, how they operate, and what's going to be the right solution that's truly going to change them, and how they operate in the company.
So what is the timeline? After you go do the assessment, you sit down, you make your recommendations to the company, to the leader, and to the participants. So then like the timeline, how does
Yeah, I mean, the timeline, Andy, really comes down to how tailored or how customized the solution actually is. We're oftentimes, majority of the time, taking content from our portfolio library and using those as building blocks.
Right.
Sometimes, though, especially in the implementation, more formal learning phase, it's just taking those modules and running them off the shelf. We have 250 plus coaches and facilitators located all around the world in many, many different countries and regions that can deliver in different languages, have different experiences, et cetera, that deliver all those kind of individual pieces. But when we're running off the shelf, there's not really much or any design time needed. So the timeline for that's going to look a little shorter. Now, the client comes to us and says, we want to have a completely bespoke learning experience, and it's got to take course over the span of an entire year. That's going to create a longer timeline. So I would say on average, more of an off-the-shelf journey from kind of conception of what we're going to do to final delivery takes about 4 to 6 months. And we're talking about something more tailored, customized, or even bespoke, you're looking at 9 months to a year, maybe even 18 months.
Well, that's actually a great timeline, because the in-depth work you're going to be doing there, you want to be very efficient in that, and I know you are. But you mentioned something too that I like to go back to and underline for our viewers. You mentioned that AIIR is a global company, and it is, and it has impact all over the world. Speak with us for a moment, because I think it's so important today with companies that are have people around the globe, and the leadership framework is somewhat different from country to country, and all of that. It's like you said, it's a very complex world. But AIIR is very capable of working at a global company and sharing their services globally and making sure that they penetrate each of those cultures. So talk about that, because that is huge to find that in a single company.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, Andy, like there's the design side of this and then there's the facilitation, right? Design side of things. I mean, our standard modules in our portfolio, which is like kind of the foundational building blocks of many of these journeys, they are really built for a Western audience. So many of our clients are in the Americas, et cetera. And we make no qualms or beef about needing to look at that from a cultural nuance perspective. So if you're running a module on psychological safety or feedback in the US versus Japan, it's going to look different in Japan because of cultural nuances, them being a more collectivistic culture. We don't try to pass off something we know is really built for the Western world as the right solution for that region of the world. There's different needs in the Middle East. There's different needs in South America, and Europe as well, and even other parts of Asia. So we definitely are very transparent upfront with clients with the need. If they need some of these modules to be delivered in other regions of the world, the cultural design that we need to do to make sure it's going to land. And then it's also bringing in facilitators who not only know the content and are experts in behavior change, but are also experts in the culture or region of the world where they're delivering, right? So if we're delivering a session where we actually have a client right now, it's a financial services client delivering sessions in Warsaw, Poland. And the facilitator's from the Netherlands, but she's married to a Pole, right? So she understands the different nuances and whatnot of delivering in that region of the world, that country, because every country has a different culture, right? So we're transparent about that with our clients and definitely make sure we're prioritizing the conversations needed to develop a solution that is agile, flexible, and is going to work for that group.
Again, Andrew, thank you so much for that discussion. Andrew, again, it's so wonderful what you're doing at AIIR, and I really love the conversation we've had around your assessment piece and how you really look at that and how you really tailor that to not only what you have in your library, but also how you can really take those things that the company needs, the individual needs, the leader needs, and you can do those things. So that is such a phenomenal way to, in my opinion, to help really solve the issue and build a great today's leader. So thank you for that. Let's move in now to another topic and talk about it, and that's the framework of all of this. And this talk about the framework piece of that, because in the thing, and I know in what I've read and what I've researched that that framework, there's 45 different skills in this framework process, and so simplify all that for us and help us understand that.
Sure, happy to, Andy. Yeah, so the AIIR Leadership Framework is one of the most exciting things going on in our company right now. A lot of energy around it. We're excited about its potential moving forward. And the greatest thing I think about it in the early days is that it's really grounded in a decade plus of data from our coaching engagement. So like I said earlier in the episode today, AIIR started as an executive coaching company. So that has enabled us to have rich data around what leaders are working on, what they're struggling with, what they want to focus on, and what their strengths are. Again, from those 10 years of looking at those data sets, we essentially looked at all that data and did a meta-analysis on what are the kind of overruling, we call them dimensions, behind all of that data. There are 12 dimensions in our leadership framework, as well as what are all the subsets, or really at the skill level, what's sitting behind each of those dimensions. So if we start at the very, very top of the framework, it's really bucketed into 3 different kind of pillars or domains: leading self, leading others, and leading the organization. So, we're not the first company or the first organization to use kind of those perspectives as like the pillars for a framework like this. It's funny, the more clients we talk to, the more internally that's how they think about leadership development, which makes me think, oh, we must be doing something right because we're thinking very similarly to the people we're helping. But like I said, leading self, leading others, leading the organization. underneath each of those domains are 4 dimensions. So I talked about 12 dimensions earlier, and then you, Andy, talked about the 45 subdimensions. I'm kind of going from the top and narrowing down. Underneath leading self, the 4 dimensions that we found in our research that leaders are working on and where a lot of their skill gaps are, as well as strengths, are self-management, time and energy, decision-making, and leadership brand. So those make up the 4 dimensions that sit underneath leading self. Underneath leading others, we have building trust, social acumen, managing performance, and team effectiveness. And then leading the organization, we have 4 more dimensions to round out the 12. And those dimensions are visioning, strategic leadership, driving change, and culture shaping. So underneath each of those 12 dimensions, there's 45 subdimensions across everything, right? And I think one of the most unique things about this framework is it's one of the only leadership frameworks out there that is skill-based. Many organizations, both internally as well as at the consulting firm level, they have frameworks like this that are more competency-based, but we're really looking at what are the skills and micro skills that leaders need to shift their behavior on to truly be great leaders today as well as in the future.
That what you just said is phenomenal. I love that approach. I will tell you, if I was leading a team today and I want to ensure that I've got one of the highest performing teams in the country, but a team that is excited about being in the space and a team that's looking to the future on development and improving themselves personally and professionally, those 12 dimensions that you're talking about covers pretty much everything. I mean, it does. And as you were talking about as you break that down into self, others, and then the organization, as you were going through those dimensions, I was thinking about in my career, you talked about decision making as one of those. This is critical, which all of them are, each of the 12 are. But I thought about decision making, how important decision making is today, because when you get bogged down in lack of decision making, I would describe it like this. It's like when you're driving in the fog and you put your lights on bright, what happens? It gets worse. That's where you get when you're in a situation that you just can't make a decision. And there's a skills and competency involved in understanding how to do that and lead that as a team. The other one I want to highlight is trust. I mentioned early on into our time together that people will follow the leader as far as they trust that leader. And I will tell you today, trust is so important in leadership. It is absolutely imperative that there's trust in that team, trust in that leader, trust in the organization, trust in the products and services of that organization. So important. Right. And the last thing I'll mention, I just had to underline some of these.
No, that's great.
The last one I'll mention is change. I grew up at Walmart, and I grew up with a leader named Sam Walton, and fortunately, I got to work with him for many years. And one of the things he taught all of us at Walmart is that the most consistent thing in an organization is change. And he said, when I was running HR one day, he asked me in the hallway, he said, "Andy, can we put change on the evaluation?" I said, well, Mr. Sun, we need to look at that. And he said, I want a low resistance to change in this company, and he started,
Right.
he gave me a speech in the hallway, listen, Andy, whatever you have to do, I want a low change philosophy here, and we had that because what change is that it is absolutely critical in an individual, in a company,
Right.
and leadership. So, man, those are great. Those are great. What you just talked about, and the way that the AIIR comes into that is phenomenal. I will tell you, if you're viewing and listening to this right now, you got to go to AIIR. You got to go to AIIR.com and check this out. Right? Oh,
No, Andy,
man, this is awesome. Okay, well, you done a really great job, Andrew, laying that out. I really appreciate that, and of course, I got a little passionate about it too. So,
that's great. We love to see that.
But Andrew, I will tell you, as we wrap here for our viewers and audience, you have done such a great job talking about leadership development, breaking down each of those segments within the way you look at your organization, way you look at it from a global standpoint, and then, how you really develop that solution by company, by individual, by leader, by participant. And man, that's great. What would you say to our viewers at this point as we wrap up? What would you like to leave them with?
No, I mean, I honestly, Andy, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about, well, really, the three dimensions that resonated with you resonated with me as well for different reasons. But the change element really resonated with me in this instance, because I think to be a leader in today's age is probably like this in the past as well, but now more than ever, you have to be not comfortable with change, but you have to expect it. And you have to understand that change is completely inevitable. And I think, like you shared, like Sam used to say, the only constant in an organization, the only constant in life is change. So I think everyone's kind of leaders and people in general have implicitly known that for a very long time. But I think what today's day and age has really brought out is the need to be comfortable with ambiguity, the need to understand what that is, the need to expect it, the need to embrace it, and the need to understand that, you're not going to get it right every time, right? And all the skills and leadership framework, and I want to talk about the topic really quick of skill multiplicity. The framework is designed as a leader, you need to become a jack of all trades and a master of some, right? And I think being generally good at everything in there, but knowing how to flex to different dimensions or sub-dimensions, sometimes it might be decision-making. Sometimes it might be, the change management, driving change in others. Sometimes it might be, how do I build trust deeper? Knowing how to flex those things is really going to set you up well to deal with that ambiguity, to deal with the storms that come, and to really be better at growing and developing people. Because that's really what leadership is. When you become a leader, it's not about you anymore. It's about empowering and driving results and change through other people, which is an entirely different skill set. Many leaders, they become leaders or they become managers. And, we had more time to talk about the difference between those two things, a different episode maybe. But when they become a leader, become a manager, many times they get into that position because they're good at doing individual contributor work, right? When you become a leader and it's about kind of pushing the work and empowering others to do an amazing job, holding them accountable, et cetera, getting the same or if not better results, and you're kind of the linchpin that drives that, but it's really about other people, that's powerful. And the leadership framework gives these leaders, in our opinion, the skills to be good at doing that. So that's the last thing I'd want to say, Andy, in terms of, kind of a wrap-up comment. But I've really, really enjoyed the conversation today. I think there's a lot more we could talk about, but the leadership framework and what we're doing at AIIR in the leadership development space is a good place to start when it comes to how to develop leaders of the future.
Andrew Smith, what a great job. What an outstanding job you've done today, laying this out. I'll have to tell you, Andrew, I'm going to have you back. I have to talk to Jonathan, and we have to have you back because there is so much more here that we need to explore. And I know our viewers want you back. I can tell you, I do. Because I mean, you did a phenomenal job laying out the big picture here. But just like you said, we could drill down deeper into each of those areas. And I know our viewers will love that. Okay, well, again, to all of our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great discussion by Andrew Smith. Again, he's in charge of development at AIIR Consulting. And Andrew, they can find AIIR Consulting at airconsulting.com, right?
Yes,
And it's a great website. You go in there and you'll get to see Andrew on there and all the other leaders in the company. And then there's also the coaches around the world. You can look at them, check them out, and then look at all their services and all that they do. Again, I said on the very front end, AIIR is a great company. You are now getting inside of AIIR Consulting, and you will meet many leaders over a course of time together with this podcast series. And but you're gonna get to see Andrew because we've got to have him back. All right, Andrew, thank you. It's been a wonderful day with you. And again, to all of our viewers, you can check us out at Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or doingbusinessinbentonville.com. Check us out there. And then we'll be posting all of the podcasts in this series, and you'll be able to have access to all of that. Again, thank you so much, Andrew. Thanks again, my friend. I look forward to having you back.